Okay. So hello everybody. Lovely to see all of you. This press conference is like the rest of this meeting, very informal. But I must begin by saying how highly enjoyable and important it has been for me to receive my dear friends from the Nordic countries and Canada here in the Westmannaeyjar Islands, and we really appreciate you all coming here. These meetings are always a little bit special, the summer meetings of the Nordic Prime Ministers. It's really an opportunity to feel the common values that we share and reaffirm our commitment to those values. Now, we have been talking about many very important things during our meeting here. I will just say a few words. Obviously, our mind has been on the challenges we are faced with in the environment. We spent some of our time in talking about the ocean and the effects of the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis on the ocean, which obviously covers around 70% of the globe, so it's therefore a highly important thing to talk about and prepare for the next COP. We talked about societal resilience, an issue that's on the top of all of our minds, not least when we see new challenges emerging, not only in rising number of conflicts, but also in the emergence of new technologies, AI, which is really changing political debate in all our countries, changing our labor markets, changing the ways we interact, changing our lives and existence. And it's very important for democratic states that rely on social contract that involves inclusion, democracy, and human rights to take control of these new technologies. And we were talking about what we as a region can do, what we can do internationally, because this is a global challenge that needs to be solved internationally. Now, and then obviously, my final point is, of course, Ukraine. The people you see here in front of you represent countries that have showed unwavering support to Ukraine in their fight against the Russian aggressor. And we will continue to do so. And we used some of our time to lay the plans how we can continue, because we will continue to stand with Ukraine as long as it takes. Now, it's a short meeting, so I will just pass the floor now to my colleague, Justin, and the special guest of this meeting.
Well, thank you, Katrín, for hosting us in this beautiful, beautiful place. It's a pleasure to be back in Iceland, but it's mostly a pleasure to be able to sit down with such strong and like-minded friends as the Nordic countries. We share a northern perspective, we share values, we share a way of looking at the world to solve the challenges both for ourselves, our citizens, and others that has meant these have been incredibly constructive and productive conversations. We covered a huge range of topics, but obviously top of mind is the security situation with both Russia and the threat to security that climate change represents, particularly in the Arctic. Our conversations around how we continue to stand strong as NATO allies in the face of Russian aggression in Ukraine, but also the impacts on Arctic security and how we continue to stand strong for our peoples. We talked about indigenous issues. We talked about a range of challenges that we each share, that we can coordinate on better and draw on each other for strengths and solutions. Le Canada est reconnaissant d'avoir eu l'occasion de rencontrer nos alliés comme cela pour parler de bâtir une économie propre, lutter contre les changements climatiques et garder un monde plus en sécurité, particulièrement étant donné les actions de la Russie récemment, défendre les droits et les capacités et les protections pour tout le monde, y compris les femmes, la communauté d'ESL, LGBTQI+. C'est des enjeux sur lesquels nous sommes alliés. Obviously, this is just an opportunity yet again to work with friends on the issues that all of our citizens are faced with back home, to which there are global solutions, and making sure we're engaging with our most like-minded partners is a way of making sure we're delivering for people back home, but also around the world. So thank you again, Katrín, for inviting me.
Thank you, and then it's Mette.
And we are really like-minded countries, so the two of you have already said the most important things about our meeting, so I can do it very, very shortly. Thank you, Katrín, for hosting us here today, and thank you, Justin, for joining us in the Nordic region. Of course, we have some internal questions as Nordic countries we have discussed today about the Arctic and our shared ocean. But war is still going on in Europe, so of course Ukraine has been top of mind for us. We are heading Vilnius in a few weeks from now. And we are totally aligned, these countries, in our support to Ukraine. Asking me, it is important to take the next steps. We have to donate even more. So we will ensure and make sure that Ukraine are able to protect their own country and therefore also the rest of the continent's security. And then secondly, of course, we have discussed climate change. And we are also preparing now the next COP. And it is important that the countries standing here in front of you, who are in front runners on the green transition renewables, that we also take our global responsibility. So it has been the war and it has been climate change that has been on top of the agenda. And it's great to be among friends. Thank you.
And Jonas?
Thank you, Katrín, and thank you for your hospitality. I would start by saying that it is a moving thing to visit Vestmannaeyjar. Because, as we say, no Nordic country is untouched if another Nordic country is affected with drama. And I can remember I was 12 years old when news came in January 1973 of the volcano here. And I think it really mobilized the Nordic region. It mobilized my country in solidarity and support. And coming back here now to see this thriving place, I would like to thank you and the mayor, Iris, for receiving us. That has been a great experience. And then among the issues we have discussed, I will also focus on the green transition and the ocean and the fight against climate change, because here all of us can make a real difference. We know a lot about the oceans. We not know about the significance, we know about the threats, and we have a pretty clear picture of what we need to do, not only amongst ourselves, but where we need to move the world in the right direction, nothing less. Second part is that we are in an energy transition where we have to succeed mobilizing renewable energy sources. We will need more power, more grid, more efficiency, and that too can be done, I think, in a Nordic, Canadian, Northern Hemisphere perspective. Solar, as you see here, the sun is shining. Wind, offshore wind, land wind. We have major opportunities, and I think meetings like this, informal among prime ministers, we take with us messages back to follow up. So, Katrín, you are a tremendous host, and thank you for receiving us.
Thank you. Thank you for mentioning the sun. And now over to Ulf.
Thank you, and once again, thank you, Katrín, for hosting us, and thank you, Justin, for joining us. We really appreciate that. I think we obviously attended the same meeting because we have said everything important so far. Just to stress, the Nordic countries have common bonds, and like in the volcano eruption 50 years ago, when the Nordic community really played a common role to help each other. It was a very good moment to manifest that. Also, of course, the common security concerns. We have all followed closely what happened in Russia the last weekend, and what is going on in Russia is basically a Russian affair, but it has consequences for the rest of the world, and that's a good reason for us to follow it very, very closely together with allies as well. And we discussed all the crisis management issues, also connected to the green transition. That I think that's what countries do in this time of very parallel and severe crisis. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Ulf. And then Petteri.
Thank you so much, Katrín. It has been a great pleasure for me to visit here. First time as a Prime Minister, which is actually my 7th day as a Prime Minister of Finland. And it has been a great honor to meet you all and Justin. It is amazing how like-minded we are. And it gives a good base to work together with these very difficult issues in these very difficult times. For me, maybe the most important issues were situation in Russia and war in Ukraine. I want to tell you that our unwavering support to Ukraine will continue. We are committed to support Ukraine, to help them to win the war and have a peace with just Ukrainian terms. Of course, we are worried what is happening in Russia, and we carefully observe what is happening there. But after all, we have to build up our common security in Baltic Sea region and Arctic. And now, and when Sweden will be the next member of NATO, we all are NATO members, and it gives a great possibility to build up the defense and security to the northern area. I'm very pleased I have had this possibility, and I'm very much looking forward to work with you.
Thank you, Petteri. And then Veronica.
Thank you, Katrín. I think I start like the others by thank you, Katrín, and your team for inviting us here to this meeting. I would like to say that the discussions have been very interesting and also very important. We all know that we are living in troubling times where the global order as we knew it a couple of years ago has changed completely. I'm talking about the pandemic, the migration, the war in Russia. They are attempts to undermine international law and the rules-based international order, and we are facing pressing global challenges such as the climate crisis, for example. We, as leaders, must address these threats and strengthen our cooperation. And I believe, from the bottom of my heart, that sustainable societies are the best recipe for lasting peace and resilience, and we, the Nordic countries and Canada, have important experience to share in the fields of sustainability and international peace building efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, and then it's Mute.
Thank you, and for hosting us here. Here in Iceland, in Vestmannaeyjar, for 50 years ago, you were hit from a terrifying volcanic eruption that could have killed off your entire existence here in this island. While I'm saying these words, the music of our famous rock group from Greenland, Sumis, instrumental piece, Ode to Heimei, Remembering Heimei, is surrounding in my head. Like the music is still alive, you are still here today. Living a good life, the way you as a community stepped up in collective action to help each other, to save your harbor and rebuilding your livelihoods continues to inspire us all. It was a situation of neighbors helping neighbors combined with the outpouring of international solidarity, not just from the state authorities, but also from people from even the smallest communities in the Nordic countries. In Greenland, as people of the Arctic and part of the Nordic family, we have always lived off the land in a sustainable way in order to survive. The world of today needs to do so for the sake of the future. We also believe that all nations need to take a stand against unprovoked aggression, like the Russians do that against Ukraine. Greenland stands for low tension in the Arctic and the Nordic region, and will continue to participate to keep the Arctic and the Nordic region and the world of a safe place to live of all humans. May the spirit of Vestmannaeyjar and Heimei inspire international cooperation at all time. Bueno.
Thank you, and Axel.
Thank you, Katrín. First, a big thank you to Iceland for some exciting and rewarding days here at Vestmannaeyjar. Also, congratulations on a well-executed chairmanship of the Nordic Council of Ministers, as well as the great Council of Europe summit in May. We all support the goal to push the Nordics to become the world's most sustainable and integrated region by the year 2030. There is a lot of work to be done, of course, and the Faroe Islands are determined to do our share. We are, of course, living in turbulent times, but we who stay here today have a strong foundation to meet these challenges. Our countries, the Nordic countries and Canada, share the same values. Our societies are built on democracy and the respect for rule of law. This gives us a unique platform and, of course, also responsibility to lead by example.
Thank you. Now we have a time for a few questions. I think Iceland is first.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Oddur Þórðarson from RÚV, Iceland's national broadcaster. I want to direct my question to you, Prime Minister Jakobsdóttir, and to you also, Prime Minister Trudeau, and perhaps to you as well, Prime Minister Orpo. Did you discuss at all during your meeting the uprising in Moscow over the weekend and the grave security concerns because of that? And secondly, do you support Ukraine's accession and membership into NATO?
Okay, first concerning Russia, we discussed the events of last Saturday in Russia, which show us really how unpredictable the situation can become. Of course, this is Russia's internal affair, but all of our countries have been following the development very closely, and we will continue to do so. Concerning Ukraine's application to become a member of NATO, it has been very clear from our part that we support Ukraine's right to make their own decisions concerning their future and their security arrangements, and that position has always been clear and it's still very clear. But obviously the fact that there is a war going on in Ukraine will have effect on when that can exactly happen.
Indeed, we had obviously very serious conversations about possible implications of the internal challenges that Russia is facing. It is their internal challenges, but our strength in continuing to stand for Ukraine, continue to stand to defend the values of democracy and openness and territorial integrity and sovereignty that define not just our approaches, but the United Nations approach to the rules-based order remains consistent. In regards to Ukraine, Canada, for one, has always supported Ukraine's eventual accession to NATO when conditions allow.
Thank you very much for your question. Of course, we discussed many times on the situation in Russia. It was surprising what happened 3 days ago. Nobody exactly knows what has happened in Russia and what will happen, but we have to be ready. And I'm happy that we are well prepared at this moment. The West is well prepared, NATO is well prepared, but we have to be ready. On Ukraine, I hope that we can give from Vilnius a clear signal to Ukraine and support their path to the NATO membership.
And it was Canada.
Thank you very much for taking my questions. Tom Parry from the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Prime Minister Trudeau, on that same topic, this uprising in Russia, I'd like to ask you, what do you think it says about Vladimir Putin's control over his own country? What do you think it says, or how it could affect the war in Ukraine? If you could answer in both French and English, that'd be great. And I'd invite anyone else here who wants to weigh in to please do as well.
I think everyone has a lot of questions about what this actually means, but we don't yet have a lot of answers. And too much speculation right now, I think, could probably be extremely counterproductive. What we are doing, as we always will, is discussing possible challenges and possible consequences for our own security, for our people's security, for global stability. That is our highest preoccupation. It is obviously an internal issue for Russia to work through, but we need to stand continuing to be strong in support of Ukraine, in support of the rules-based order, and that's where we will remain. Je pense qu'évidemment, il y a beaucoup de gens qui se posent des questions sur ce que ça pourrait vouloir dire dans les jours, dans les semaines à venir pour Poutine, pour la Russie, mais il n'y a pas de réponse claire encore. Notre responsabilité en tant qu'allié, en tant que pays qui continue d'appuyer l'Ukraine, c'est d'être prêt pour toute éventualité, de laisser ces processus se découler à l'intérieur de la Russie sans interférence, mais certainement de rester prêt pour les éventualités et de rester ferme dans notre engagement pour protéger les principes du droit international et les principes des Nations Unies.
And Finland was next.
Hi, I'm Viivi Salminen from Finnish news agency STG. I would like to ask you following questions like to all the prime ministers who are members of the NATO. What is your country going to do to guarantee Sweden's NATO's membership?
Jonas will start.
Well, I think we have made it clear since Madrid last year that Sweden, alongside Finland, fulfill all criteria. So with no delay, Finland and Sweden were welcomed into NATO. Finland is now rightful member of NATO, and we are very clear, I think, in our message and expectation that it's a responsibility of NATO states to do the ratification. There are 2 ratifications lacking. And I think we should underline 2 weeks ahead of Vilnius that they should be fixed before we get to the summit. Sweden belongs to NATO and should be admitted rightfully.
Mette, would you like to add?
Yeah, very shortly, because we totally agree on this topic, and as you probably know, the Nordic countries were also the first countries to welcoming our neighbors into NATO. Now we have succeeded with Finland, and we really hope and we strongly support Sweden's way to NATO. So hopefully we will have a good result. And I can say on behalf of all of us, we are working on this, and we have been working on this since both Finland and Sweden decided to join our alliance.
Petteri and Justin, just a few words for each of you. Petteri.
Okay. Once again, thank you for all NATO members. You support our membership and ratified our membership so fast. It's the same for Sweden. We all members have to support, have to send a clear message that Sweden is ready and we need Sweden. Sweden is ready for NATO and we have open door policy. And its message here is clear.
Justin.
Canada was actually the first country to welcome. Yeah, it was a friendly competition. We were the first country to ratify the accession of both Finland and Sweden into NATO. We continue the conversations to ensure that we arrive at full accession by Sweden in time for Vilnius. Those conversations are ongoing amongst all NATO partners, and we will keep pushing.
Okay.
Le Canada était le premier pays à ratifier l'accession de la Finlande et de la Suède à l'OTAN, et on continue de pousser fort pour s'assurer que tous les pays vont accepter la Suède à l'intérieur de l'OTAN.
Okay, Denmark.
Yeah, Rasmus Lindegaard from the Danish Broadcasting Corporation. A question for you, Mr. Trudeau. You're all, or some of you, going to the NATO summit in a few weeks. But who would you prefer to have as Secretary General of NATO after the summer? Would that be Mr. Stoltenberg or the Danish Prime Minister, Mrs. Frederiksen?
That is part of the discussions that we will be having at the NATO meetings. I can tell you that the work that Jens Stoltenberg has been doing has been absolutely exceptional, which is why we keep extending his term. The leadership of NATO is one that we will ensure continues at the highest level, but I won't speculate on who that'll be.
Could you think of anybody better than the Danish Prime Minister?
Okay.
Like I said, those will be conversations we have there. I kind of like the Danish Prime Minister where she is, because she's a friend and ally, but I'm not going to speculate on anything that she or others might want to do or a role to fill.
Okay, we all love Mette.
We all love
Norway.
Yeah, we already have the Secretary General, so I won't ask any questions about that. I'm Joachim Rekstad from Norwegian National TV. I have a question for Mr. Trudeau. As I get the last question today, I think I would like to ask you, is this the beginning of a beautiful friendship? I mean, are we now in the beginning of a closer relations between Canada and the Nordic countries? Also regarding NATO, like you can cooperate in the NATO alliance better as a Nordic, North Atlantic Union?
No. This is not the beginning of anything. This is the continuation of a beautiful friendship. We have been allied and friends for a very, very long time. And whether it's on security and military issues, whether it's on fighting climate change and protecting the Arctic, whether it's on values, inclusive values that stand up for women's equality, for LGBTQ rights, for the rights of minorities, the Nordic countries and Canada have always been incredibly closely allied and incredibly closely cooperating for years and years on the international stage. So this isn't the beginning of anything, but it is a further step forward. The honor I have of joining these friends in this forum was extremely touching and I think extremely useful both for Canada and I hope for all of them, and I look forward to having more occasions like this in the future to be able to continue these conversations.
Okay, as the time manager of this meeting, I declare this press conference over. Thank you all very much for joining us. Thank you.
Merci.